Uridium 2 is a fantastic shooter, 3 years too late. It's Amigos, everything Amiga. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're talking about Uridium 2.
Yeah, man.
What is it about outer space and blowing stuff up that makes so many people happy?
You've got to think. I mean, listen. I'm going to address this like an educated person here, vague. And so, I'll look at what outer space is. When man understood that there was stuff in space, all right, he thought about how cool it'd be to go there, right? It'd be cool to like go to the moon or Mars, right? But that kind of got boring, like in the 40s. So then it was like, how cool would it be to go into space and then like maybe find aliens? That'd be pretty cool, right? But then that got boring, right? And then it was like, man, if we go into space and there's aliens up there, we may have to blow the crap out of them. And then bam, someone was like, that's it. Ship-to-ship combat in space. That's going to be awesome. And then the rest is history. Because who doesn't want to watch an impossible fire happen in the vacuum of space? I know I do.
That's true.
I think that's the way I look at it, man.
Do you ever get hung up on the fact that there's always a certain group of people that are there raising their hands at the back of the room saying, well, actually, you wouldn't hear any sounds of explosions in space because it's a vacuum. Does that ever get to you?
Well, I mean, listen, there's two approaches to it, right? Some like in science fiction, for example. Sometimes sometimes it's huge, hideous explosions. The Death Star explodes, or whatever. But then occasionally, sci-fi goes the opposite directions. There's a great Doctor Who, where Doctor Who's stuck in space, right? He reaches into his vest and pulls out a cricket ball. And he throws the ball, and it hits a spaceship, bounces back, he catches it, and then uses the momentum of the ball to shoot across to the other ship.
Wow.
I always thought that was clever. Yeah, that was great. That was the doctor that played cricket and stuff. The point of the matter is you can use both if you're clever, and you can even intermingle them, sort of like say Babylon 5 did, or Firefly, where you would get the explosions, but you would also get some other stuff that would happen. So I kind of like a little bit of both, but I don't mind a big, huge, epic explosion in space because I like explosions and I like spaceships blowing up and blowing each other up.
Do you think the Death Star is the #1 most iconic space explosion?
Well, I mean, listen, Star Wars has undermined itself over the past several decades, so I don't know. It's got to be up there. Probably my favorite space type explosion is in Star Trek VI: Interstellar Country, where Sulu blows up the Klingon spaceship that was invisible, that was screwing with the Enterprise the entire movie. I kind of enjoyed that one.
Is that the one where they find God?
No, that's the fifth one. We don't talk about that one, Bode. Horrible.
All right, Aaron. Well, let's talk about Uridium 2.
Uridium 2. Now, Bode, as I always ask you, is this one that you had tried before this week?
Never played Uridium or its sequel.
I will say I had played both, and I did spend this week becoming much better acquainted with the second one, and to a certain degree the first one, because I felt like there was a reason to try it. So, of course, we're not going to get too far into it, but Uridium 2 is the sequel to a very popular game. It was mostly popular outside the C64 called Uridium, a game that sees you taking a lone ship across multiple dreadnoughts to try to blow them out of the sky. They did not reinvent the wheel with Uridium 2, but they did sort of re-envision it to a certain degree. Uridium 2 came out in '93. This one was developed by Graft Gold. We've done a lot of Graft Gold games. I didn't realize it, Bo, until I looked at the list. They did Fire and Ice and Off-Road and Paradroid 90, Rainbow Islands,
They're one of the most veritable European developers, for sure.
In fact, we covered them pretty recently with that Simulacra, if you'll recall that one.
Simulacra, yeah.
And we even did Virocop a while back. A lot of their games were published, including this one, by Renegade. Renegade, amongst those games, also did some of the Chaos Engines, Elfmania. So they were a pretty prominent.
Rough and Tumble was a Renegade.
They did rough. Yeah, correct. This one was coded by Andrew Braybrook. I think he was also did the first one. He's done.
Was he one of the guys that did Elite?
No.
Okay. I
don't think so. He did, although he won the Amiga, he did a bunch of stuff, including pretty much everything I just mentioned to you, except he also did Empire Soccer 94. That's one soccer game I've not tried, but I've heard about it, so we have to put that on the list. He had a team of graphics guys on this. It's funny, just to touch on it before we get too deep into the cast of who worked on this. There was actually in the One magazine, they did a series of diary entries on this game. Like Braybrook would write
like a developer diary.
Right, exactly. I think it was like 9 or 10 diary entries. Ultimately, the last one was like they'd ask, "Well, where's the game?" I guess it was running late, so he was like, "Well, here's one more. Here's one more of these things." But he mentioned he had a team of people working on the graphics. He said it was a weird feeling to have people, making the graphics, because it's not exactly what you might want. But on the flip side, you don't have to make the graphics. So there you go. Most of the people that worked on this graphically didn't do anything else on the Amiga, with the exception of a fellow named Simon Sheridan, who worked on many of the games we just mentioned. The music of this game was done by Jason Page. Again, he worked on a lot of the games we just mentioned, Off-Road and Fire and Ice and Paradroid 90, Putty Squad. So he was I would say, sort of you don't hear much about him, but he did some pretty decent stuff. Master Axe, another one of his. And then lastly, the lady's voice in this, if you hear that lady talking, that's Emma Kuberly. And she actually went on to do some stuff on the Genesis as well. So she even had a little role out on this. So I got to ask you both, did you look this manual up perchance?
No.
Okay.
I found a guide on
I saw the guide,
gave me some useful information, but I couldn't find the docs on this one.
So
Where did you find them, man?
I found them they were on Hall of Light.
Okay.
And so I read. Now we're not going to get to. You didn't miss too much. Maybe there's one thing I wonder if you caught, but the backstory of this, I'm not going to get into it that much because I've read it a couple times and I'm not exactly sure what is going on. It picks up directly after the first Uridium, and again, these dreadnoughts that are in this game, and I guess for the uninformed, these dreadnoughts are basically think of huge capital ships that fly around the galaxy, and they're split into fleets. Like I think each fleet has each little section has like 3 or 4 of these dreadnoughts in it that you have to go through. And these things go around and they consume planets, sort of like Galactus. You know what I mean? They suck all the resources out of a planet and leave it a dead husk. And so your guy in the first game stopped this from happening. And he did that by using his Manta. This is the name of the ship that he's in.
It's a cool name.
Yeah, it's not bad. So in the docs, it basically says, like, I guess it's sort of like happening again. And I guess the whatever planet your guy's from was working on a big super solution for this, but it's not done. And so, from what I read, the docs were written in it's not the most riveting tale mode, if you know what I mean. I'm trying to be polite. I mean, listen, we've read worse.
In the world of Amiga docs, that sounds about normal.
We've read worse. We've read much worse, but this was just like, it didn't grip me, But that's basically the long and short of it. You're out here to destroy these dreadnoughts before they can come and consume planet or planets, okay? When this thing comes up, Boat, first impressions.
I was impressed with the speed. First of all, the speed of the scrolling, but not only the speed of the scrolling, like going fast, but the way that you can control the speed of the scrolling with the stick. I was expecting a lot of jitteriness. I was actually expecting some slowdown when you do sort of slam on the brakes. I was expecting things to be weird. Other first impressions, it's very chaotic when you first start the game, because if you try and play this like a normal space shooter, number one, you're going to get wiped out pretty quick, and number two, there's a lot of things that are coming at you just as fast as you're going at them. So this was a game that I had to kind of stop, take stock of what was going on, and really kind of reprogram myself to think about this game as not being your normal horizontally scrolling R-type space shooter.
Yeah. This game reminds me, on ARG, me and Brent have tackled. I can't remember if it was maybe me and you as well. There's a game for the Intellivision and I think the Atari 8-bits called the Dreadnought Factor.
Yeah,
right?
You guys did that on ARG.
And the Dreadnought Factor is very similar to this, except in that one, you fly across a capital ship, and your goal, you make passes, and with each pass, you try to blow every conceivable part of the ship off. And when you finally do that, the ship explodes. And there's a bunch of dreadnoughts heading to come to get your planet. So it's very similar. But Dreadnought Factor runs, I would say Dreadnought Factor runs somewhere in the neighborhood of the original Uridium. Wasn't really super fast, but it was a comprehensive sort of fun game. And it actually plays pretty differently on the Intellivision than it does the Atari. In fact, I believe the Ataris, the ships are vertical, and on the Intellivision they're horizontal. But don't hold me. One of the two. It's one of those are reversed. So I was somewhat, once I understood what I was playing, because I've played this before, I didn't quite understand exactly what I was supposed to do. But once I looked at the docs and read that guide and understood what was happening, I got a lot more out of it. Now, this is one area I don't know if you would have known about without the docs, because I know I didn't know until the documentation. So, in fact, I bet there's a lot of people that don't know this. On the title screen of this game, if you hit F1, you cycle through the options. Do you know what I'm talking about here, Bode?
I did
Okay,
that.
so you did know that. So the options in this are actually really robust. You've got 1 to 2 players hot seat, and then you've got 2 players simultaneous where one player controls the mantra and one player controls like a satellite ship that just fires and sort of can move around the mantra.
Oh, okay, yeah, they call that like girlfriend mode in like Super Mario Galaxy.
And then they've also got a mode where you play 1 player or 2 players and you both have a second ship tied to you, like a robotic ship.
That's cool.
So if you're having trouble with this game, you can switch to this mode where you get basically a robot ship, and it's sort of like follows you around and shoots at the same time you do, and so it gives you a lot of extra firepower. It's especially potent on the second stage when you're blowing up the reactor. It's a real big help there, and then it can get killed too, But I thought that was neat. It's also got what's called it's like a frenzy mode or something that requires AG80 play. And it's like 2 players, crazy, all kinds of crap on the screen at once.
This is a game that it's an OCS ECS game, but there's a mode that requires AGA.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah.
I think that is seriously the first time that I've ever heard about doing that.
It's in the docs.
Of Amigos.
In the docs, I think I've still got the docs up here somewhere. It mentions that it requires the AA chipset. So one would wonder exactly at what point this development was going on, what that was going on, but that.
Because I think that was the early code name of AGA. Yeah. That was like with the ombre and all that junk.
There were some people on the EAB board. I was just nosing around to see if I could dig anything up, and they had mentioned that this game had been mentioned in a preview as a CD32 title, right? And sure enough, here comes Galahad. Galahad, I always enjoy his stuff.
Yeah.
Galahad, the old cracker. He said Renegade passed on Uridium 2 CD32 because it did so badly that they didn't want to publish it. And Binary Emotions almost picked up the title, and it didn't publish it either. And so, as far as they know, there was never a CD32 release of this.
Boy, specifically, that's a real shame. That's a real shame.
Well, I mean, it's something you could have done.
Right, because if you look at some of the Drek that appeared on the CD32, it's clear that if you were a CD32 owner, you would literally buy anything they put on the shelf because you were so starved for games. So this is a game. I'm just going to go right into
Get in there, Bo.
This is a game that you don't play, like I said, like R-Type. This is a game that you sort of, your speed, you're constantly turning around. You're constantly varying your rate of speed. It's a very manic play style. I found it to be a very manic play style, and it's a style that I found suited itself much better to the D-pad than a joystick, which is sort of the opposite of the way that I feel about a lot of shooter games, which are just basically better with a joystick. With this game, being able to just kind of mash down on the arrow pad and be able to quickly change direction and speed together, there's just something that I found very satisfying about using the D-pad to control my ship. And if they could have thrown in, you know, some extra button support with the CD32, and kind of expanded upon it a little bit, this really could have been great. And I think that it would have sold just as well as anything else in the CD32. I mean, if this came out in 1993, it was right on the cusp of all that stuff. So it's unfortunate, and I would like to know more about that decision process. But anyway, talk a little bit, Aaron, about, well, talk a little bit about the mini game in this. I want to hear your words on what you think this is going on here.
So here's how this game works, because to describe the mini game, you sort of have to explain what's going on. So, as we mentioned, you start off in your ship, and you're like basically like phase one. And the phase one is you go across multiple capital ships, smaller capital ships at first, and you try to eliminate all their guns. Okay, and after a while, you will get a note that will flash on the bottom of the screen. It says, now try to land, time to land. And I'm on the capital ships somewhere. There's a landing area, like a landing strip, with two like arrows pointing at it. Depending on the ship you're on and the color of the ship and whatnot, the arrows will vary in color, but you can see them. And what you do is you line your ship up and sort of fly over those two arrows, and your ship will come in for a landing. And then it's time to go in there and try to take out the warp core or the core of the ship, the power core. And this is an interesting area because you're in sort of a zero-G, like almost like a jetpack area, where you sort of have to hit the thrust button to keep yourself aloft, and you try to shoot the central core that's covered in shielding. So at first, it generates a little bit of like fire to come off of it, but it's not super tough. And what you do is just keep shooting this thing until you've worn off the shielding, and then you just can shoot the core. Now, when the core goes, it blows up, and the ship starts to crumble, okay? So at this point, you're faced with a choice, Boat. And the choice is, because as this thing crumbles, power-ups start appearing all over the place. You can stick around and get these power-ups for as long as you want, but the chances of you getting hit by debris increases because it's coming down basically random. It's just like the ship's exploding. If you hold your fire button down, you like basically a warp area will appear, a small one, just man-sized, and you can just go up through it, and then that finishes the level. You can die in these cores, and if you do, you don't get the ship doesn't blow up. So you've got to get out of there.
You do. The ship doesn't blow up, but you do move on to the next ship.
You do advance, but the ship doesn't blow up.
Right.
If you get out of there after blowing up the core, then you're treated to a neat little part of the game where the ship sort of goes up like ash, basically, just like it starts separating in a really cool way. It's a really cool effect.
It looks really cool. It's almost like it's being consumed by flames, totally consumed.
Now, if you played Uridium, did you say you never played the original Uridium, Boat?
Not until this week.
Okay, so you did play it then. In the original Uridium, it's the opening levels is pretty much the same. You fly across the dreadnoughts, taking out the guns, getting fired upon by other ships, taking out those ships, avoiding walls, which we'll get to. But in the original Uridium, the bonus level is much goofier, where you're basically, there's I think it's like 6 or 7 strips, and there's on each side of the strip there's a light. One side will have like points, and one side will say like out or exit or whatever. And it's timing. And every time you get one right, the light goes up a level until you get to the top and blow up the ship. It sucks. I've never liked that in Uridium, and I thought this ending made a lot more sense and was a lot more fun and a lot less random than the one in Uridium. What was your thoughts on that, Boat?
I didn't get to the bonus stage in Uridium 1. I found Uridium 1 to be hard as nails. And the reason why is because there are so many things you can run your ship into. In Uridium 1, you have these raised platforms. Almost, you think about them like billboard signs that are mounted on the dreadnought. And you run over those and you're dead. It's game over. And you just don't have that in Uridium 2.
Well, you do have those. You actually do have them.
Well,
if you
I
get
actually didn't run into them. So
if you get far enough
they were
in,
there, but I never hit them.
Oh, there's tons of them. As you get farther in, there's lots of walls.
Okay, well, this is the very first level. The very first thing that you see is a billboard that kills you.
Yeah. Oh no. I agree with you on that. Uridium is tough. You know, the funny thing about Uridium is if you play the C64 version of Uridium and the ship comes out, it moves at what I would call slightly quicker than a walk. You know what I mean? Like a speed walk.
I mean, Uridium's sort of a disappointing game in a lot of ways. Uridium 2 perfected it.
Well, you know, I kind of wish there was some sort of happy medium, because Uridium 2, that sucker goes.
It goes, but you can control it, you know. And again, it's all about the waggle. It's the D-pad waggle that lets you maneuver in such a way that you feel like you have a semblance of control.
First of all, you're what you said about using a D-pad on this, you're dead on. I agree with that, because I tried to play this with one of my Atari sticks, and I found it no good. This is a gamepad game right here. And then in terms of the speed, I didn't mind the speed so much, except for a couple issues. You've got a radar screen at the bottom of this, okay? And the radar screen is good for a couple things. It shows you when bogeys are coming in. It'll also show you where the guns are. And it's a rough idea to try to figure out where you're at, because on some of the later levels, the ships are really, you know, they're wide and big. You know, they're pretty large ships. And so this gives you I mean, that's pretty much all the radar's for. The problem is trying to look at the radar while you're actually playing is tough, because there's so much. Uridium's a game where nothing's happening, and then suddenly a ton of stuff's on top of you, and it makes for you have to be a quick reactor. Maybe just quicker than I am.
And this is a game, like you said, much the radar is very similar to what you might find in Defender in terms of its layout.
That's right. I agree.
But
yeah.
Unlike 90% of the games that feature a radar screen, I actually found this one to be really useful, because you can see enemies as they're approaching, and those are times where you will get wiped out. You know, if you're flying at the same sort of altitude angle that these enemies are coming in at. And that was one thing, though, that I didn't really understand, because there would be some times where I thought I should be wiped out and I'm not.
Yes.
And it has to do, I'm sure, with something in the docs that I just didn't read.
Well, I read the docs, and I know exactly what's happening. I don't know either. I would be like, I've got to be dead, and I wouldn't be. So I don't know exactly, because, I mean, the game has a variety of enemies. It's got ships that fly around in formation like you'd expect. Although I will say, they did not devolve into that blood money, just random shapes. These look like cool ships. Yeah, they're flying in formation. They're coming to stop it from blowing up the dreadnought. That makes sense. Occasionally, you'll see a thing on the ground generate these kind of mines, and they'll follow you around. You know, they're like, I don't know, heat seekers or magnetic or whatever, and you have to try to get those things off of you. But you're right. I had the exact same experience. Sometimes I'd be sure I was dead and I wasn't, and then sometimes I would die so fast I wouldn't even know what I ran into, because everything was, you know, when you're going real fast one way and the enemy's coming the other, you can get blindsided real quick and not even see what's coming. This game has power-ups in it. The power-ups are pretty bizarre and interesting, Bo.
They are. They're very interesting. I do not like the way the power-ups are delivered in this
Explain
game.
it to them, because I was wondering if you liked it or not.
They sort of float towards you in a way, but the best power-ups don't. The best power-ups float directly up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
When you're doing a horizontal space shooter, you want to either make the power-ups move slowly and just kind of have them drift, or just have them stationary. You know, they don't need to move, and they definitely don't need to move at a rapid pace, because if you're moving at a rapid pace, you're never going to get them. And I missed out on tons of them because of that. And let's be honest, the reason why you play one of these games is to get the awesome upgrades. You know, you feel like a real BA if you're shooting around that 360-degree shot or the laser blast or whatever.
Yeah, so according to the guide here, and I can tell you I did not get all these, and you can tell me if there's anything that you saw that I didn't. The pickups include a bomb, which is cool. It just the effect's really good on the bomb when it just kind of, you know, blows stuff up. You've got a chaser, which is basically a drone, which is that same thing you would get in the two-player drone area. You've got this thing called a cyclone, which is like lasers kind of shoot all over you, almost like a death blossom type thing. The ionizer, it's you've got a laser, which just gives you twin lasers. Then you've got extra lives. You've got plasma, which gives you two lasers that shoot out. a scatter shot that fires lasers everywhere. You also could get a shield. I never got the shield, but I've seen it in playthroughs, but I never got hold of one. Did you ever get the shield? It's pretty cool looking. It's like a circular shield, and you can kind of see it. The graphics look really good on it. You can get a torpedo, and then you can also grab victory points. And when you buy there, you can, as you fly over the ship, the Dreadnought, it's not like a Xevious where you can like shoot and bomb, but if you pick up the bomb thing, you are dropping bombs on the deck of the ship and blowing stuff up, which is weird to me. Like I said, there are parts of this game there's a lot of stuff on the decks of these ships, and I'm like, man, that looks like something you could get, and you can bomb it. I guess you just get points for it. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but it's
I
odd
think it's just a points thing.
I kind of wish you could either shoot or to bomb it, frankly, if you want the truth. But, I mean, you can, but you have to get the pickup. And you're right, the pickups are tough to get because they float off the screen real quick. And generally, there's so much going on that it's tough to... I mean, every once in a while, you can get lucky. I got better as I played it. So if I played this a ton more, I could probably get a little more, proficient at that. As you go through the game, the bonus level gets a lot tougher. Or I guess it's the second level, whatever you want to call it. Because things orbit the core on top of the shields, and they look like battery watches.
Mm-hmm.
Or watch batteries. Watch batteries.
They're going to cell batteries, right?
That's right. But they actually gyrate and sway in this really cool way, and they'll extend out like an octopus arm. I thought that was a really slick. Gameplay aside, but graphically and audio, what did you think of this presentation on this thing?
It was great. Great. I loved it. I thought this is again, if this game would have come out in 1990, hot on the heels of, Hybris and those other classic shooters, this would be remembered as one of the highlights of the Amiga. The problem is that this game came out way too late. It took way too long to develop. And by the time it came out, other space shooting games had already sort of taken over, and this one in a lot of ways the mechanics are sort of dated by comparison, but looking at it through the eyes that I look at it, which is like, I don't care when it came out, let's just see what it looks like. I think this game is great. I love the variety of enemies. I love the animations, the explosion animations, the weapon animations are all gold. I love the fact that you don't lose the game by losing the minigame. That's probably my least favorite game mechanic of all time, is when you beat a level and then you have to do a mini game, and then if you lose the mini game you have to beat that level again. We've seen that a fair number of times on this show. Yeah, that does not occur in this game. I love the way the dreadnoughts explode. I love dreadnoughts. I love the dreadnought factor. I think that's a great game too. I love the idea of again, it's a very Star Wars sort of thing to do. You're flying over this just mammoth flying vessel in space, blowing up targets on it while you're trying to, evade the bogeys that have come out to get you. It's a great concept. I'm surprised there aren't more games like this, to be honest with you. I think this is a triumph, and it's a shame that it's not really well remembered as I think it should be.
I was expecting not to like this. All right, I've never been a big fan of the original.
Yeah, completely different than the original. If you played the original and you didn't like it, play Uridium 2.
They just took this is one of the few times where they took a game off one of the 8-bit machines, and when they made instead of just making Uridium Amiga style, they actually did all the stuff people want you to do. Let's improve the graphics. Let's improve the sound. Let's improve the gameplay. Let's make it look like it belongs on this 16-bit system. And they did that, and I give them credit for that. I think there are. This game does. You can get pretty good at this starting out. When the obstacles start appearing more, I found it a lot more harder because you've got to really pay attention to your maneuvering. The docs mentioned that you could, one of the things you could do in this game is like make your ship like do a barrel roll. I'm talking about, boat, and you can sort of make it. I've read the docs and people talk about how you could use this to maneuver between walls and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, I'll never get to a level where that could be possible, and I can never pull that off. The manual even talks about the possibility of landing upside down, and you can't do it. And I thought to myself, I never used that aspect of the game. So there are probably gameplay elements here that lost on me because I never got to the point where I needed to pay attention to doing barrel rolls. I'm sure that's early on. There are 6 different big levels in this. So it's a pretty expansive game because each level is comprised of like these different sets of dreadnoughts. You'll know when you start a new level because there's a screen where it's loading that'll have like some kind of like it'll name the fleet and it'll have sort of like a picture of what the fleet looks like on it. You know what I'm talking about? So which is that's cool. I like the destruction you can write in this. What I would love to see is like a combination of this and the Dreadnought Factor. I like the Dreadnought Factor. Actually, what you do to the ships more than I do in this. Although as you get further into this game, they pull out extra goodies like thrusters and stuff that you saw in the Dreadnought Factor that I liked. So that's pretty cool. I just never got that far. I just had to watch the video to see them. But I wish the speed of this was about 2/3, and then you had the Dreadnought Factor ships. That'd be the perfect game. With all that said, I really stunningly was surprised how much I enjoyed this. I played it a lot this week. I went back to it. I tried different controllers and tried different strategies. It doesn't start off deathly hard, so you can at least figure out what you're doing. What did you think of the level of the learning curve on this?
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that I could beat the first level. Once I figured out what to do in the game, I could beat the first level without trouble. And that's all I ask. In any game, that's all I ask, and I'm disappointed so many times.
Yeah, and the radar screen, I mean, it does a good job. Listen, it tells you it gives you the idea of the 3 things you need to know. Where are the bad guys? Where are the guns? Where are the walls? That's really all you need to know. If you can get your mind, your brain to keep one eye on it while you're playing, then you can do pretty well at it, I think. But the audio was top shelf. I'm surprised, Boat, that this doesn't get more praise, to be honest with you.
I am too. It's a mystery, other than the fact that it's a late release.
Yeah.
And people had, this is the same time that games like, Project X and all of these other Amiga shooters that we've seen that are more in that R-type vein had kind of taken over. And I think the public's appetite was for those type of games, and they judged this as sort of an archaic play style, which doesn't make any sense to me. It's just different. It's not archaic, it's just different.
I was reading people, there was a lot of mixed bag on this, and they talked about how polarizing the first Uridium was. I always heard that people really loved the first Uridium. I didn't realize it was a polarizing game, and I guess this one's sort of polarizing. And I'll tell you, when I played this on stream a few years ago, I did not like it at all, and I didn't like it because I didn't understand it. And this is one of those games where a casual look at it, you're like, eh. But I think I would prefer this over, say, a Super Stardust or a Project Addict. I would much rather play this.
This is probably the first Amiga, and this is an Amiga exclusive title.
Yeah.
This is probably the first Amiga exclusive shooter that I would seriously go back and play again.
I'd have to think about that. But I do also,
because all the rest I can do better on other systems. There's nothing else like this that gives me this sort of play style in any other game on any other system.
Okay. Well, no. Listen, that I can understand. When you put it that way, it's a valid point. I am surprised this didn't get ported to more stuff too, because this would have been at home on a lot of.
This sort of dropped at that time. Again, that time period where people were not really. There were a lot of competing 16-bit platforms by this time. Nobody was really sure what horse to back, and nobody wanted to lose a lot of money. So.
Yeah. So I was interested to see how this would score in the magazines and whatnot, Boat. The people at Lemon give this a 7.8, which is a respectable score.
Yeah.
I looked over the list of all the different magazines. Listen, this got good reviews. Most of them are in the 80s. Amiga Format gave it a 94. Amiga Joker gave it an 86. That's one of the highest Amiga Joker scores we've ever heard on this show. The low score on this, I believe, it's a 78. The average magazine rating is an 84. So, I mean, that's why another thing. I mean, the magazines liked it. I don't understand why no one talks about this one. I know I've talked to more than a few people that know this game existed, and so I wonder if it was just a limited release. I mean, the thing is, you've got a great developer, you've got a great publisher. I don't know. There was a malfunction at the junction, Boat. Did we get any Discord action on this one?
We did. Let me read you some of these reviews.
Yeah, get into it, man.
Our first review comes in from David Hearn Ryder. He says, "This is a good game, albeit frustratingly difficult, particularly at first. The enemies, mines, and bullets are hard to see, just like the landing strips at times, and this will hasten your demise. Uridium 2 has some improvements over the landmark original shmup on the C64, yet it's not as entertaining or memorable. Still, the scanner is a lifesaver, and if some of the weapon upgrades are cool as heck. The slight vertical scrolling complements the predominantly horizontal action, and in places the graphics do flash you some super nice detail. The end of level core blasting for each level is a bit of a stinker, though you might get a new weapon out of it. Braybrook will always be one of my heroes, even if this isn't his finest hour. Give it a chance if you missed it the first time around, and don't be put off when it slaps you on the wrist for your first few turns. Technically dope in its day, worth persisting with and worthy of 7 out of 10 dreadnoughts. Alien Breeder writes, Uridium 2 is a fun game that is probably a few years too late. Graphically, it's a nice improvement to Uridium, but it feels much more like an 8-bit game with a nicer skin. This game came out after Project X, Xenon 2, Battle Squadron, Swiv, R-Type 2, Apidia, Agony, Epono-Sin, and others. That means while nice, it was a bit outclassed. But I still give it 720 top bananas out of 1,000.
Oh, is that a good thing or a bad thing when you get that many top bananas?
Lord Soup writes, having to go from memory as I'm mucking about with my PC at the moment. As a teen, I enjoyed I2. I think he means you two. They could have added a bit more to the core gameplay, but if you want old school, brutal arcade action, it's definitely as good as its C64 forebear. Limited but fun. 7 out of 10. And Pajako6502 writes, slow down, you crazy fool. You're going to get yourself killed. Oh, don't worry. I already crashed. Uridium 2 takes the classic 8-bit scrolling shooter that wowed us back in the day and slaps a 16-bit Coda bait on and bolts a little minigame between ships. The graphics are classic Amiga-looking graphics, and it all looks great. The music is banging, and it moves at a heck of a pace. I actually wasn't a fan of the between-level blow-up-the-core thing, as I found it a bit irritating for not much payoff, as you are more likely to buy the farm than get any useful hiccups. Sadly, I didn't get nearly enough time with this game, but what I did play I really liked. So if you're into scrolling shooters, give this one a whirl. The only downside is at our age, the old reflexes are not what they used to be, so you might find it a bit too fast-paced and need a bit of a lie-down afterwards. Lots to do, lots to like, very little to hate. 8 out of 10.
Very good, Boat. I wanted to mention something. I forgot to mention it earlier. So when this game starts and when your ship appears on the screen, there is a really rocking animation of like your ship coming out of warp or something. You know what I mean, Boat? I love that. And I kept thinking to myself, I just played Time Pilot 84 a couple months ago on ARG. That's the way you beam a ship into a level, brother. You don't just have it show up looking lame. That thing's got a really cool animation, and I think the attention to detail overall in this thing was quite good. Will you come back to this one, Boat, you think?
Any day of the week. I'll play this any day of the week.
I'm right there with you, brother.
Welcome to Retro Rewind. I'm your host, British Jones. Whether you're into the Amiga, Commodore 64, or Tiger floral print speed suits, Retro Rewind has all you need from the friendly hosers of the Great White North. Looking to upgrade your Amiga? Check out the Amiga OS 3.2.2 Kickstart ROM for just $18. Or maybe you need a C64 or C128 diagnostic harness. Grab one while they're hot. Don't miss our best sellers like the 1541 Transit Card for just $1, or the incredible Amiga Coin Cell Battery Adapter. Shop now at Retro Rewind Limited and bring your classic computers back to life. Retro Rewind Limited. Frank's the man.
Amiga News.
Campbell Train.
All right, Aaron. Big news week this week.
Oh, yeah.
What you got there on the old...
This is the Kill All
Green,
Humans
man.
trailer, Boat.
This is the Kill All Humans trailer.
The
Okay.
AI kills all humans. The first
So,
news
Aaron,
story.
last week we had a guy come in on the old Discord, or not Discord, the Twitch chat on our stream, and saying that he was he's developing this new OS4 game called AI Kills All Humans.
I remember that. Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to play this week, but it looks like a pretty fun game. And he did send me a message afterwards saying that he is looking for beta testers. So if you are interested in beta testing this game and you are a modern Amiga user, OS4 or PC, you can send this guy a message. He's One Joyful Day on YouTube. Subscribe to his channel, by the way. Give him some love.
This looks kind of awesome, Boot. I'm looking at this. This looks super professional, man.
Yeah, this is a real game. He's not ham and egging it over on One Joyful Day.
Yeah, go check this dude out, because some of you folks that are more knowledgeable, cunning types, that might be right up your alley. That looks real. That looks real interesting, Boot.
Yeah, and he's with us in the chat. He also adds it is for Morph OS as well. So again, if you are interested in beta testing a new tactical RTS game for modern Amigas and Windows, check out AI Kills All Humans from One Joyful Day.
Yeah, that looks real interesting, man. Check this guy out.
All right, Aaron. Next up, this is a little something. Worms, the board game. You know, we love Team 17 because they've managed to squeeze out every last drop of profit from the Worms franchise, the franchise that saved the struggling software company.
Or so we thought.
Continues to keep them afloat.
Yeah.
They're going back to the money bank for Worms, the board game. Aaron, are you a big fan? Now, I know in the past you've played some video game-based board games. I think you tried Centipede, or you got one of those for your birthday a couple years back, right?
Listen, I play them all. You know, you got to remember, me and Brett did a show where we played Berserk, the game, and we played Pac-Man. You know, so I love this stuff. And I'm not telling you, look, as I look at this, I don't know. I guess this is coming soon, or is this a Kickstarter? What are we looking at here?
This is going to be a Kickstarter.
I knew it.
But I'm clicking here, and I don't believe. Oh yes, it has been launched, so we're right in time, Aaron.
Oh, good. Finally.
This thing is now launched on Kickstarter. They've already met and exceeded their goal 10x.
Yeah.
They were funded in 13 minutes. They've already raised $325,000 for this game. Aaron, and this thing is let's see, it looks like you are going to be paying about $100 for the game. Now you chuckle in a way that makes you feel like this is not the normal price for board games now, but I don't know if you've looked at the price of board games these days. Everything is $100. Everything.
Well, no, I go over to the we got a store here locally now. We got a couple of them that are selling board games, and I can see why the board game business done blowed up, because the board games have taken the price of what cars used to cost. They cost a ton. Now you're right. I routinely see video board games going for like starting around 50 and then moving their way up north of 100, 118, 120. What was that huge colossal game you bought that was like $1 billion pieces?
Gloomhaven.
How much did that thing run you, Boat, back in the day?
That was over $100, and then I paid almost as much for the inbox organizer.
It's one of our most viewed videos. Almost one of our most hated as well, Boat.
That's true. People don't like watching me put that thing together.
Now, let me ask you a question, because we're talking about expensive games here. When you pay that kind of wad for a game, does that motivate you to play the game a lot more?
It does, until I realize I hate the game.
Oh, that's bad. So you realize this after you'd bought the game?
Yeah, because in my mind, you know how it is in your mind. In your mind, you're like, man, this game is going to change my life. I'm going to be playing this game all the time. I'm going to be living in a fantasy world with Hat Chad, and we're going to be doing battle
that
with
sounds
demons.
so good. I don't want to do that. I can tell you that right now.
You don't want to live in a fantasy world with Hat Chad?
No, I do not. That sounds like a horrible idea. So let me ask you, did you sell Gloomhaven?
I did. In fact, I sold it to Fivebot, Pac-Billy's brother.
Oh, well, listen. And one thing about him is, he can lift the box. That's for darn sure.
He's a freaking stud.
You got a video here for Worms. It looks like the board looks a lot like Settlers. Actually, if you look at it, Settlers of Catan. I love Worms, as you know. I'm a big Worms guy.
Yeah, I love Worms too.
Part of it is because I've never been beaten at Worms. I'm undefeated as a professional player.
That's interesting.
And this looks pretty good, much like Illuminati, I might add. And this looks okay. I mean, I'm looking at the board here, though, and I'm not seeing $100+ of stuff. I guess the little
Yeah.
worms are going to cost something. Maybe they're pewter. Maybe they're gold.
They're not. They're not pewter.
Well-
I mean,
The disappointment in your voice.
I sort of agree with you on this, but I mean, for $100 game, most of the time when you buy a game like Gloomhaven, I mean, that is a game you get bits. They're bits to beat the band. This game does not communicate that to me. You've got a stack of cards. It looks like you've got about a dozen worms miniatures.
You get
and you've
45.
got a
45.
tile cardboard, some tile cardboard pieces. That's it.
It does include the 5 to 6 player expansion. That's kind of neat. Hey, listen, it might be better than anything.
Listen, if the game is great,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like, I'd rather pay, $100 for a great game than $50 for a game that I hate. So I really, I wish them the best over
Yeah.
Team 17. I hope.
I
This
think
game
they
does
already
well.
got the best. After
Yeah.
looking at that Kickstarter, they went to the money bank, just like you said. It's another 10 years of Team 17, brother. They're not going nowhere. They're going to be making the big money. So hey, I'll play it. With Jamie or Brent buys it,
Listen,
I'm in.
I have a feeling that this is going to end up in Jamie's collection. He buys everything.
It depends on if it's deep enough for Jamie.
That's
because
true.
he doesn't want any shallow crap. It's got to be 10 layers of deep.
He hates everything I love.
That's there you go. Well, it sums it up nicely.
All right, we move on, Aaron, past the Worms board game in to the 2023 World of Retro Computing.
Oh
Aaron.
man, this is going
It's
to be the
upon
bomb.
us.
Yeah, it is.
We talked about this a couple weeks ago. The World of Retro Computing is a 2-day vintage and retro computing conference in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. I'm so used to saying Kitchener, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. There was a drum corps that was from up there called Les Etoiles.
Do
Back
do
in the
you realize how
mid-90s.
huge that town is? I thought it was like nothing happening. I
I
talked to
think
Frank on
Dutch
that
Boy might have
interview.
been from Kitchener too. DCI fans, let me know.
That
but yeah,
town's
there's
big, brother.
Yeah,
It's a
Kitchener's
huge town.
huge. It's
I didn't
huge.
know.
We found out from Frank it's like 250,000 people live there. So.
Before that interview, did you know how big Kitchener was? Were you like
had
me and
no
thought
idea.
I thought it was like Huntington or something, or maybe like Lexington or something. I mean, it's a big town. It's a huge town, and it's all going down in that town. Listen to these lineup. Frank told me who was going to be on this show.
Tell me, man.
You got Bill Hurd. You ever heard of him? You ever heard
of
of
him.
Bill Hurd? How about your buddy from Ireland, Dave Haney, the Hainster?
That's right. No,
And
well.
an old favorite of mine from back in the day, Jerry Ellsworth, will be there. The inventor extraordinaire. By the way, I don't know if you saw, she's got a new company now. And I saw a commercial they did for it. It was one spicy meatball.
Really?
Jerry Ellsworth's not screwing around, brother. She's got this is some crazy stuff she's got cooking. But this is Frank's all up in this particular outing. It looks like solid gold money here, Boat.
Yeah, so basically, if you want an at a glance, this is going to feature vintage and retro computer and gaming displays, the guest speakers you mentioned, plus workshops, LAN parties, vendors, buying and selling, challenges, and raffles.
Yeah.
All ages, free admission.
That's the way you do it.
Free.
Man,
Brought
look
to
at all
you,
this
of course,
stuff.
by platinum sponsors, RetroRewind.ca. Sponsorship levels are available if you would like to throw your hat in the ring. You can find all about this at worldofretrocomputing.com.
And I hear the venue this year is off the charts good, too. So everything
Yeah.
about this, it's coming up double money, Canadian money. So check it out, everybody.
Aaron, coming up next, we have a new video from Doug from Dynamic Computing, the 10-minute
I've heard of
Retro
him.
Amiga cast. Why don't you tell us about this one?
This is another one of these videos. Listen, the number of Amiga 4000s we currently own. No Amiga 4000.
Correct.
Right? We don't got any of them. So Doug goes in, and what he's got going on here is a straight up. He's trying to put these Freeway Triton Light USB cards, Zorro 2 and Zorro 3 cards to the Amiga. Now, what is this? Well, it's a USB port, basically, on a big card. Now, listen, we don't care about this stuff that much because we're not into this sort of thing. But the fun of this is learning how goofy and wacky these systems are. the thing that got me in this particular video is that the cards at the card side isn't keyed, so you can easily just put crap in backwards, no problem. You've got to
right
put
into
stuff,
your $8,000 big box Amiga.
You've got to put stuff in certain slots, and then there's a whole section at the end of this where Doug just tries to randomly get crap to work. And with the USB port, guess what? The success rate, I'd say, is about 35%. It don't know. It's an Amiga. It's not gonna know what the crap's going on. It's old. It don't know. Yeah. And so you're waiting for drivers and stuff. But if you're the kind of person, first of all, everyone probably needs to have a USB port on the old Amiga. It's not the worst idea. And this looks like a pretty decent way to go. And if you're like the kind of person that just like to experiment and stuff, you're in business. Bo, you should never get one of these, and probably I shouldn't either, because the first thing we do is plug this sucker in backwards, blow up the world.
Yep.
You gotta have the patience of a Doug here, and we don't got that.
Yeah, Doug is in his element with these cards for sure.
Doug just showed up. Oh no, that's Picard. I'm sorry, but Doug was in here earlier. But listen, if you need something to put mystery keyboards in, mice, whatever you want, this may or may not be the card for you, Boat. I don't know. I don't want to oversell it. I don't know, brother. I don't know.
And finally, Aaron, our final news story of the week. Did you know, Aaron, that we have our very own website on the internet?
I've heard that, yeah.
EverythingAmiga.com is full of tons and tons of long-form reviews and other articles written by members of the Amigos community there to serve your nostalgic Amiga needs and inform you about games you might not know about. And I wanted to bring this to your attention because way back in the dark days of the pandemic, our one and only Rob Flack O'Hara published a nice long-form article on the very game that we reviewed this week.
Yeah.
It's known, he has a series, an ongoing series on everythingamiga.com called All That Blitters, and it's all about Uridium 2. So if you'd like to see Rob and his nobody can opine like Rob Flack O'Hara. That's true.
He puts a pine in there, that's for sure.
That's right. And so you can check that out. And if you haven't been to our website before, we encourage you to go there. EverythingAmiga.com. Tons and tons of long-form content, articles about hardware. Everything Amiga. It's what it says on the tin.
Yeah, and I will say, I did read this article this week. And also, when I searched for Iridium 2, this came up. So double trouble. That means it's getting some action. Well done, Flack. He talks a little about Uridium 1 in there too, Boat. Hey, Boat, as we move down the line here, I just had to get this in the mail, Boat. I figure, I don't want to brag. I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I was talking to Boat before the show. I got a few copies of the newest edition of Amiga Addict in the mail. And if you're watching at home, I'm just going to hold this up. But there it is in print. So no one can say we made it up right there. Boat, it's an article on me, you, and the Brent in there. They've got us in our track suits. There we are. And I can tell you, as I held this in my hot little hands, I ushered my kid in here. I'm like, look at this kid. I'm like, look at this article. And for a brief moment, I felt like a real important big man. Boat.
What was Luke's reaction when he saw it?
He was very impressed. Because
Good.
if you're in a magazine, by God, that means something. And I think, because if it's funny, you popped in on everythingamiga.com. There was a time way back in Everything Amiga where there was a fellow, and I've mentioned this before, that was doing an Amigos magazine. And he changed the name eventually, but still, I was super honored that in my name a dude would put articles in there and call it. I was like, wow, this is great, electronic magazine. Never in my wildest dreams. And I thought, number one, there would be an Amiga magazine, and number two, that we would have a small feature in it. It's a ego driving thing, Bo, but it makes me happy. I'm appreciative of the guys over there at Dunk, all the guys that did that. I don't know if they know what that kind of thing means to a guy, but for me, it was a pretty big deal. And I'm sure your people thought it was pretty cool too, Bo.
They did. And of course, the biggest news of the week, Aaron, happy 67th birthday. We appreciate
67. Take off
service on this earth.
I'm gonna punch you 67 times next time I see you.
Aaron, I gotta know, on the big day, what did you do to celebrate?
Well, I went to work. My buddy got me a box of donuts. That was nice.
See, the way that I see it, as soon as you walk into the lab, all those cute lab girls you're always talking about, they throw the confetti into the air, and then Greg blows the.
None of that happened, but they did give me some donuts. They all signed a card. That was nice.
That's nice.
I came home. My kid made me a card, which was nice.
That's the best.
And they got me some cupcakes, so I had donuts and cupcakes. And then for dinner that night, instead of going out to eat, I made hamburgers, but we're out of buns, so we ate hamburgers on hot dog buns because that's my birthday right there. That's the way that if I could summarize my life, a couple donuts and hamburgers on a hot dog bun with the kid. That was it. So that was my birthday, Boat. I'd say that's a win. Thank you, though, Boat.
I'm glad that you've made it another revolution around. And,
thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, we're going to celebrate in style on Sunday.
Oh, man,
so, Aaron,
I'm scared
what do we
to
got
death.
going on the old YouTube channel this week?
Well, Boat, really, the only thing that of note, I'd say, we did do I've started up my Friday Night Disaster streams in full force, Boat. So over on the Amiga Stream Team channel, I had a lot of fun last week playing with my new TI 994A, Boat. It was my foray into the 4A, if you know what I mean. You like that?
Aaron, before we forget, I don't want to cut off our riveting recap of our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But tomorrow it's going down.
Oh, yeah.
It's going down for real, as they say. Tell us about what's going down tomorrow, Aaron.
Holy smokes! I'm glad you did that, Boat, because I was
call Edvin. Edvin reminded me. So.
Edvin is great. Right before bed, he's at full force. We are tomorrow night. It's the International Computer Club. We've done it one more time. Every International Computer Club, Boat, could easily be the last, and I'm serious, and you know I am, because these things are stressful to me. But I feel less stressed out than I've ever been, Boat. I've got internet fiber now, the strong strength of fiber behind me, and and what makes me happy is this full lineup of genius presenters, Boat. If I can go over a few names, if you'll indulge me. First of all, we've got our old buddy, Graham W. Vebke, is going to be putting down something. We got Petzel. Frank from Retro Rewind is going to have a little talk and a video. Happy Coding will be there, the Codester, right? Pajako has a video. Dave Z is putting something together. Dave's always out of his mind.
Yeah,
right? Mitsuyama is going to get in there and get him some. Your own personal self, Boat, is going to be involved in something, God knows what. And I've got it on good authority from L. Curtis Boyle that Nick Barentes is going to debut his newest game.
Oh my God!
On the show tomorrow.
Debut? Are you serious?
That's what the little bird told me, and the little bird is a guy called L. Curtis Boyle.
And he's
all
never
hail.
Wrong.
You got that right. So that's a good lineup. We got 9 strong presenters right there. And you never know what's going to pop up on the old ICC. I'm looking forward to this one, Bud. I'll be honest with you. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What time's that kicking off?
That kicks off at 5 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. If you're going to be involved in the show, I would like you to be there by 4:30 so I can make sure I kick the tires. I also want to thank the T-Speaker regulars who helped me test out my new rig with great success, I might add. So I think we're going to be solid as a rock this time, Bode. For International Computer Club, hey, one last thing. If you are a Discord member, we're going to have a room called International Computer Club. Just come on in, all right? You don't have to even be a presenter. If you are just going to watch on Twitch or you're not a member of the Discord, we're on the same channel you're on now, 5 p.m. EST. We'll be ready to go. We'll take your questions, your comments during the show. It should be a fun time. We're very casual in there. People are going to come and go as they do. Everybody's chill. It's going to be a lot of fun, Bode.
All right. All right, Aaron. What do we got coming up next week?
Let's see what we got here, Bode. Oh, my. Sing it, Bode.
Lollipop, lollipop. I had one of my kids start singing that today. I was like, that song's from the 20s. It's like 200 years before you were born.
It's still relevant, Bode. I've never heard of Lollipop the game. Have you?
No. It's a Rainbow Arts joint, though, so you know it might be good, maybe.
You have a love-hate relationship with every developer on the Amiga, Bode.
I do.
It'll be fun, maybe. I think it's a shooter of some sort or a platformer.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Platform shooter.
Could be.
Could be. Who knows? All right, guys. Thank you as always for listening. Thank you as always to our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support our show, patreon.com/Amigos podcast. We will see you all next week. And until then,
Adios.
Made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.